Thank you everyone for turning up at such an early hour. I'm really impressed. I had visions that I'd be talking to myself in an empty room. I'm going to talk today about a fairly new initiative that has grown out of a partnership between two research centres, one at the University of Stirling, one at the University of Edinburgh. And as you can see, our title is Memory-Friendly Neighbourhoods, and that's our particular take on this still fairly ill-defined notion, broader notion of dementia-friendly communities. And what we've been doing for the last year is engaging in a whole series of networking and knowledge exchange activities that have been funded by the Scottish University's Insight Institute, which is also based here in Glasgow. So in this presentation, what I really want to do is just give you a very quick kind of flavour of the kind of things that we've been doing. Give you an idea also of how this project came about, and then talk a bit about where we're hoping that this network and this knowledge exchange programme is going to develop. So, Memory-Friendly Neighbourhoods is essentially a Scottish-focused initiative, but it's very outward-facing. What we've wanted to do from the beginning is to make connections to a much wider national and international network of people who are doing work around dementia-friendly communities, and bring in some of that experience, bring in some of that evidence, and begin to actually build something of a resource around it. We had a number of aims that we set out with. In particular, it was about trying to create something of a connected culture around this idea of memory-friendly neighbourhoods. One of the things that we recognised is that although there are some fantastic pieces of work taking place around the country and internationally, they're not exactly happening in isolation, but there's scope for a lot more conversation and a lot more dialogue between these different initiatives. But also, of course, breaking down some of those barriers between different disciplines and sectors and areas of practice, communities of practice. So we want to also build links, stronger links between research and practice. There's a really strong argument, we feel, at this early stage of work around dementia-friendly communities to ensure that what's happening is as evidence-based as possible, even though the evidence base at the moment is fairly patchy, but also to drive more robust ways of gathering data and gathering evidence and being able to evidence that impact and the change that's happening. And we feel that research and academia has a role to play, working collaboratively with community-based initiatives on that basis. And also what we're aiming to do is establish an online network, and I'm going to talk a little bit more about this in a moment. So I just want to come on to say a little bit about some of our activities to date. It's still very early days for this network. Our first event was held in Glasgow earlier this year, and our focus was on international evidence briefings. We were bringing people in to tell us about their experiences from different parts of the country. But we also heard from people with dementia. People from the Scottish Dementia Working Group have been involved with this initiative from the beginning. Essentially what we wanted to do at this first meeting was to start looking at a more conceptual level at what is a dementia-friendly community or a memory-friendly neighbourhood. How do people understand it? And we found that there was a massive, very rich variation in how people viewed what it is, but there were certain core things that I think were far more sort of non-negotiable, and one of those key issues and messages from this early meeting was around the involvement of people with dementia being core at every level and every stage of any kind of community development work. In our second event, it was a two-day affair. We began by hearing about projects that are already happening in Scotland, and we were hearing about the challenges, for example, of developing work in rural environments, the challenge of working on a city-wide basis and that kind of scale. But we also realise that this very kind of conventional method of standing there with a paper, talking and presenting, as we're doing today, isn't always the most effective method for knowledge exchange, and it certainly isn't the most effective method when what you want to do is involve people with dementia in a more meaningful fashion. So on the second day of our meeting, we put everyone on a bus and we coached them up to just north of Glasgow, a town called Kirkintilloch. We met up with a group of social workers there who are working on the dementia community work in East Dunbartonshire, but also a reference group of local residents with dementia and their carers. And what we did was then to divide into smaller groups and head out into the town. And we took a walk with people, we took maps with us, and we talked with people as we went around about their experiences of this environment. And as we went, we were taking note of aspects of the environment, such as things like availability of seating and access and texture of the roads and where the toilets are, this kind of thing. But it was also an opportunity to understand how someone with dementia experiences their local environment. And one of the things that came across very clearly was how being out and about in an environment actually prompts memories, prompts recollections. People tell you stories and narratives about their lives that come out of this experience of walking around. And for many of the people who took part in this event, this was quite an eye-opening experience. We had, for example, town planners, architects, commissioners, a whole range of different academics and researchers, and also practitioners, most of whom had never actually had the experience of just going for a walk with someone with dementia. And what people commented on was the fact that it led to understanding different kinds of relationships. It was certainly a much more supportive way for actually working with someone with dementia, much less confrontational than, for example, sitting down and having a one-to-one interview or questionnaire, which can be quite inhibiting for people. And as you can see, when we got back to where we started, the building where we started, we had a huge map, and we started mapping Kirkintilloch with post-it notes and stickers, creating a picture of this local area that emerged through the eyes of the people with dementia that had been part of the walk that we took. And then finally we went back to Glasgow, and we sat down and did a debriefing with our participants on this activity. So at this point we weren't so much looking at Kirkintilloch, we were looking at the whole mapping experience, asking about whether mapping could be a relevant participatory mapping could be a relevant process for things like gathering evidence when you're doing a memory-friendly initiative. And this was the point where people started talking about the limits and also the benefits of participatory mapping and the possibilities of using it to measure change, the possibilities, for example, for individual practitioners like post-diagnostic support workers using this kind of process as a way of assessing somebody's experience and their relationship with their environment. So I just want to come on very quickly now to say something about our online activity, because alongside these events that we've been holding, we've been building an online resource, and this is where our attention is now beginning to turn. We've created a website which is designed to do a number of things, particularly to facilitate networking. We've got over 100 members altogether, and you can see how we've organised it. We've got images and contact details for everyone, and behind each of those images there's a kind of a profile page, so people can say a little bit about themselves. They can describe their areas of expertise, the kind of work that they're up to, and from that page there is a resource area, so people are uploading outputs from their work. They're uploading references to things that they think are going to be useful and relevant to people. And this is something that we're hoping to develop in particular. So to start building an archive and a repository for everything that might be relevant to this whole question of memory-friendly communities, whether it's podcasts or videos in this case, or academic papers, or grey literature reports from projects and that sort of thing. So we're right at that point of building now this website, and you can probably begin to guess where I'm where I'm going to end on this particular presentation. It's really just to invite people to join us. If you are working in the area of dementia-friendly communities, and if you're interested in being part of this network as we start to build it, check out the website. This is the address. There's details of how to join us. You can see who else is involved. We'd really welcome your involvement in the project. Thanks very much.